Intuit makes a lot of suggestions in those bank feeds, and you really can't just take the suggestions that they make. You need to look at it. You just can't do it. It needs a person to look at it.
Welcome to the AI in Accounting podcast. Now, here's your host, Joshua Feinberg of Vic.ai.
So I'm Joshua Feinberg from Vic.ai with the AI in Accounting podcast, and I'm here with Candy Bellau from Kramerica Business Solutions based in New Orleans, New York native. And we're going to talk today about QuickBooks Online. But before we do that, I want to understand a little bit more about your background, your accounting practice, the kinds of clients you work with. What kind of got you to where you are in your journey?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Bookkeeping, accounting was something I fell into. I started when I was 14, working in an office, and I learned on green ledger sheets. You know, the old school way. I actually had to write out a financial statement, a profit and loss, a balance sheet. I definitely learned old school, and when they got a computer, they decided those things weren't going to stick around. So they decided I should work on it, which was great because I learned how to set up full systems by the time I was 16. And it just was so easy for me that I stayed in this field. I had no desire to ever be an accountant, but it just came naturally for me. Started my career, I'm from New York, and I worked for companies. I worked as a controller, general manager, but always dealt with the money and the finances and the planning and the budgeting. And I ended up leaving the corporate world, and I started working for a consulting firm, and it just blew my mind. It just blew my mind to work with so many different people, to be working in so many different areas, and it was always interesting. I was always meeting new people. I felt like I was really helpful, and it wasn't just working for one person. And I started my own firm in New York. The person that had hired me for consulting ended up mentoring me and helping me start my own firm. I then moved to New Orleans when I met a cute guy in a bar during Mardi Gras. So I left my firm and started fresh in New Orleans with no contacts, no clients. I had to start all over. I used different platforms, but primarily QuickBooks, because that's what I felt most small business owners were using. It was the most user-friendly. And I really feel it's very important for a business owner to be empowered and know how to pull reports and get information. So that made it a lot easier than some of these more robust systems that, you know, are easier for you or I to use, but a business owner, it may be a little bit more difficult. So I've been using QuickBooks for a very long time. I've been a pro advisor for a very long time. I moved to QuickBooks Online kicking and screaming. I didn't see any need for it. I was diehard desktop, and I had clients asking for it. Once I learned it, and I learned the beauty of it, and it was magical to me. It was just life-changing to be able to do all this work and not have to go to the client, that every time, that we're not transferring files, that we're not going to see people. I fell in love, and we basically converted our entire practice we're primarily QuickBooks Online, and we've moved to a complete virtual setting.
That's really fascinating. It's interesting. I spoke with a CPA a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how his local clients are disappointed that they can't drop off the jump drive anymore.
Disappointed? Who would be disappointed about that?
And he can't go to their office and physically pick up reports anymore. So a lot of what's been in the works for the last couple of years with cloud accounting and digital transformation, and all of a sudden overnight, in a matter of weeks, it's hard to imagine too many resource-constrained small businesses having a valid reason to not want to go.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful we had already gone through that transition. I mean, I had a large office with, you know, everybody coming in every day. We were all set up, and it was actually the birth of my daughter that prompted me to reevaluate what we were doing and why. And the team said almost every one of our clients is on QuickBooks Online. We don't even see people anymore. Why do we need this office? Why do we have to come here? And it just made so much sense. We gave up the office and we went virtual.
Well, this way too, you can have clients everywhere. And
True. And now we do.
Really changes everything. So shifting gears a little bit more of the tactical, when it comes to QuickBooks Online, what's your favorite tip that you'd give to beginners that are just starting out? And this could be a small business owner that's a client that's just starting out, or somebody that's in school, right out of school, maybe interning for you in an entry-level role that's brand new to QBO. What's your favorite advice for them?
So it's interesting. I threw these questions out to my team to see what they would think and what advice they would give. Now, I always think don't take the information that Intuit provides for you in the bank feeds. They make a lot of suggestions. And I think that's the biggest rookie mistake I see, is that people take whatever suggestions come in the bank feeds. My team calls it follow the money. And what they say is that make sure that you're putting in transactions at the banking level. Let's say you have credit cards attached, or sometimes they have loans. Don't do any transactions in there when it comes to making the payments. Make sure you're doing those from the bank account that you made the payment, and let it follow through to the credit card. Whenever they're done in the credit card feature, it's just a disaster. Whenever they use the transfer feature that Intuit suggests all the time, don't do it. Just unless you know what you're doing, never use the transfer feature.
So start by getting the data entry done on the bank side as opposed to in the credit card side, and don't transfer from the bank to the credit card.
Don't do the transfer feature, because Intuit makes a lot of suggestions in those bank feeds, and you really can't just take the suggestions that they make. You need to look at it. You just can't do it. It needs a person to look at it.
Well-intentioned, but maybe too general, or?
Oh, it's a disaster. That's why our firm specializes in cleanups.
What do you find? What's the biggest disaster you can think of in recent months or years where you had to do one of these cleanup jobs from well-intentioned advice that came from suggestions?
I'll tell you the biggest messes and cleanups is PayPal. When they use PayPal to invoice clients and pay bills, that so much ends up missing, and then they double enter all the transactions because they're trying to do a PayPal bank feed and their bank feed, and we usually have to scrap everything and start over. It's usually a disaster.
Are there other electronic payment platforms that have similar problems, or does it seem to be unique to how they integrate with PayPal?
I would say PayPal's the worst. Primarily because people use it, they'll invoice somebody, they get money in, and then they decide to pay bills. And then they can use PayPal as a bank, and they'll transfer some money over as they want it, but it doesn't necessarily correspond with the income. So it's not going to match up with an invoice, and it's not going to be paying a specific bill. So maybe they moved $100 over, but really they received $1,000, and then they paid a $900 bill. So now trying to break that all out and get that information is troublesome. Plus, I had a client that I kept seeing money come over from PayPal, and I said, well, I'm going to need your PayPal statement. And they said, why? I said, well, I need to get the revenue and the information that's in there. And when they gave me the PayPal statement, there was $1 million in the PayPal account. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, well, we only take what we need. I said, are you reporting this income? It's mind-blowing.
So you wonder if it's like the API is not working well, or just a totally different cultural way of not coding and breaking things out right. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to watch for. Yeah. So that's kind of the beginner scenario of what to watch out for, being really careful with working with the credit card coding, working with the transfers, working with PayPal. What do you tell to a power user someone you might meet at a conference or introduced through a mutual friend, and you're exchanging tips on like the thorniest issues, like war stories you've been through with QBO?
Well, I would say probably what I see a lot of that people don't utilize is there's filters within QuickBooks Online, whether it's on the registers, on the bank feeds. And it's pretty interesting how if somebody has a question, I can usually get the answer so quickly. And they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, I just filtered all the data. I excluded what I didn't need and I put in what I did need, or I'll run a report and really fine tune what transactions I need or what vendor I'm looking for. It's those filters and the really detail on the reports that you're looking for that will create reports to find problems, so that if we see a client has a recurring issue, we'll create a report that will show them. It'll populate when they make that mistake. And, we build a lot of those using filters, using the transactions and saying, just pull up deposits that are to this vendor or to this account, because typically that's going to be wrong. And then the client can fix it themselves and start to see where those problems are happening. I love the reporting and the filtering within QuickBooks Online.
Do you find that there is enough power and flexibility that you're able to take the same kind of filters and same kind of reports that you use and deploy those across a big chunk of your client base?
It's for simple things, and we can get a lot. We figured out workarounds for most of the issues we have. It's not, QuickBooks Online definitely has so many limitations. So you really have to be very familiar with the software to figure out a workaround for what you have without having to, and there's so many resources you can bring to add on and third-party apps, and that make it so much easier. So we try to keep it simple for the clients, and depending on their size, we'll try to work within the parameters, but you have to seek other solutions depending on the client size and their needs.
Great. No, that's definitely good to know. So power users, it's all about the filters, it's all about the reports, and a lot of it is customized to the context of their business, their challenges, their problems, and things that you identify, and things they may see and things they may not see till they so you start to get under the hood. What do you see as across the board the single biggest mistake that people make with QuickBooks? Your clients, you mentioned a few of them with going directly to credit cards, relying on transferring. Mm-hmm. You were talking about
bank feeds.
It's all the bank feeds across the board.
The bank feeds are the most horrific. And, a lot of times we just go in and we're like, okay, we're going to clean this up. Just go right to everything that's reviewed, select all and undo. And we're just going to start fresh. They'll leave the vendor names off, which is problematic for many reasons. One is, if you want to bulk reclassify, you can't bulk reclassify without a name. When you go to do 1099s, kind of need a vendor name for that. And small business owners may not realize that, and they just classify everything and they're not worried about vendor names. The other big issue is undeposited funds and a lack of understanding how that works. I will go into a client and, we could care less what the P&L says. We just want to see the balance sheet. And if I go onto the balance sheet and I see $200,000 of undeposited funds with a net income of $2,000, I know there is historical information in these undeposited funds that has not been processed correctly, and more than likely the revenue was double stated, which is obviously problematic. So I feel like people would benefit so much from just having a basic understanding of the software before just diving in or wanting to do it all on their own.
What do you think is the best way for somebody to get that basic understanding if they're motivated?
There's
both like an
plenty.
end user or client as well as someone that's wants to be a pro advisor.
Well, so a pro advisor, I would strongly suggest going through the certification process. Um, if you can work with somebody, or I definitely suggest, if you're not a tax preparer and you're just working in people's books, get to know your clients' tax preparers. Talk to them, ask them what the problems are, ask them what the pain points are within the books. Um, Ask for the tax returns to see if they even tie out for the prior year. I think that there's so much to be said for having those relationships with tax preparers and feeling that comfort zone. I know if I have a question that I'm not sure of, I have people to ask. And I want to know if I am doing something wrong. So I feel like our clients have a team. It's not just us, it's the tax preparers. We're working with their insurance agents. We're the people that are surrounding this client to make sure they're taken care of and there's no egos. We're all working together to get things done. And if I don't know something, I'm going to ask. So it's important, if you're starting out, to drop the ego and ask for help. It's also important, I think, to not take on work that you're not qualified for. I think that's wrong for the client. I think everybody has to start somewhere, but at least get some help and guidance. Maybe work under somebody. Don't charge people for things when you don't know what you're doing. We all started somewhere, but there's definitely training out there. If it's a business owner, if there's plenty of YouTube trainings, but your chamber of commerce, your community college is going to give you classes and courses, and they're all low price. Don't try to take it upon yourself to just figure this all out. Either, if you're not going to go for a class and get some help, at least reach out to somebody to help you do the setup, or have somebody on call that can check in monthly, quarterly, annually, that you can speak with.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, one more quick question. You mentioned the bank feeds are especially problematic. If you were to get the ear of a product manager who works on that part of QBO, what's your big advice for them?
So my huge thing that I've been asking for years, every time I go to QuickBooks Connect or Scaling New Heights, or I call my rep and have my conversations with them, is I beg them that if you see there is a pro advisor or an accountant working with a client, can you shut off the ability for the client to work in the bank feeds and just let them see the balances? And to have an option to turn on or off so that I could go in, and when I take a new client on, I can immediately shut off their ability to work in the bank feeds. But they can still go in and see what's there. They can see the balances from the bank. They can see the balances in QuickBooks Online, but they can't do anything. I want them to be able to write a check and do stuff within the program,
Right.
but don't touch my bank feeds, because I just spend so much time undoing things. It's very frustrating.
So it's like a read-only or like view-only access for that part of
Just for
QBO,
that one piece.
for that
Just
one
that
module. So they have to break it up by module and have user roles within that particular module.
Yeah, I even thought, I'm going to figure this out and program it myself, which, I don't really have the time for that. But I was so aggravated. I signed up with QuickBooks Online on their thing where you could get the code. Yeah, you know this stuff better than me. But I was so mad. I was like, if they're not going to do it, I'm going to figure out how to write this myself. I just tell clients, please don't touch it.
So part of the trusted advisor relationship that they are willing to have the doctor-patient relate, and
Yeah.
and actually be humble enough.
You could write that, right?
So the final question that I wanted to ask you about today is thinking again, like in the mode of a product manager, but imagine your accounting firm, or you're maybe with a slightly larger accounting firm, and everyone wears so many different hats, but at some point you're likely thinking about, what does the future of your practice look like? Where are you going to make the big bets? What's going to be really in demand and needed from your clients 1 to 3 years, even 3 to 5 years out from now? Where are you making the big resource investments? Where are we headed?
So for me, I feel like I'm successful when I can develop a team member that can now support themselves with a skill that they've learned. And we like trying to teach people and um, building them up. You know, I think there's plenty of clients out there. I think with what's going on, the virtual world, I think accountants and bookkeeping and CPA, this is such a needed area. And I think people realize it. So I think there's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of, I don't see it as competition. I think we're all peers working together and there's enough work to go around. So I like to surround myself by really good firms that I can talk to and we can collaborate. But I think the big opportunity for me, success is seeing a team that I love and seeing them care as much as I do, seeing them work hard, learning, developing. Um, you know, we need the clients to support a bigger team, but I feel like we're lucky at a point where we just want to work with nice people. And we're happy, we're content. We get all of our business from referrals, we get all of our business from CPA firms we work with. So we're not actively trying to bring in clients. We obviously take clients and we add to our team as needed. But my goal is to sleep good at night, to feel like I've really helped people, and to feel like my team has a work-life balance, that they do a good job. I don't penalize my team for being efficient. If they can figure out a way to save time and get the job done, they're not going to get paid less. So I encourage them to embrace technology, and I want them to do whatever they can to help the customer to succeed. I feel like it's part of our mission to embrace the small business owner and see them succeed and see them do well. So I think there's so much opportunity out there. There's going to be so much work coming our way. And just with what's just happened with the PPP, I mean, we helped all of our clients plus, we didn't charge a penny for it. And we just said every small business owner that stays in business keeps us in business. And that's that's what our mission is.
Definitely brings loyalty. Loyalty and trust are such precious things in this world.
I can say I love almost all of my clients. Like I talk to them on the phone, they have my cell phone number. They're people that I would want to spend my time with. And if they're not, they don't stay clients.
It's great to be able to use that as the foundation for what's a good fit and what's not. If you can make them happy and they can make you happy and feel a sense of professional gratification, there's a genuine mutual respect from both sides. Yeah, that's awesome. Candy, what's the best way for somebody to follow what you're working on, to learn more about your firm, to connect up with you?
So we actually have a business Facebook page, which is Kramerica Solutions. But a little pet project of ours that we've been working on is a Facebook page called QBO Coach. And that is, as time permits, I like to do helpful tips and hints, and I like to put on webinars just to teach people. One of the big things to teach people is the balance sheet, and not being afraid of it, because it's so awesome. And so on Facebook, we're on KramericaSolutions.com or Kramerica Solutions, and QBO Coach is a pet project of ours. We're hoping to reach out to more small business owners and help them navigate the world of QuickBooks Online.
Sounds like a great project. Anything else you think that would be helpful for people to know with your outlook and all your years of experience working with QBO?
Just don't put your head in the sand. You embrace technology. It's not so bad. It'll make your life a lot easier. And there's a lot of people that love it. There's a lot of people that hate it. I happen to be one that loves it. All the problems that people talk about, I don't necessarily experience them. And I'd say 95% of my clients are on QuickBooks Online, and we hardly have any issues at all. So I think it's fun. It's easy. It's real time. Go for it.
On that note, this is excellent. Thanks so much, Candy, for joining me for today's podcast episode. I wish you and your clients great success.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed this.
You're very
Thanks
welcome.
for listening to this episode of the AI in Accounting podcast. To subscribe and leave a review, check us out at blog.vic.ai or wherever you like to consume podcast episodes, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.